Good morning, everybody. Once again, coming to you guys a little bit early so I can get this out before the stream starts in a couple of hours here. And yesterday, the Seahawks didn't really do anything. Like I said in my video last night, the day was better characterized by what the Seahawks didn't do, as in they didn't tender a handful of players. So there's really not a whole lot to talk about in this video that hasn't already been gone over in terms of the individual moves that have been made. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to take a step back and take a look at what the Seahawks have done in terms of cap space. Because that's been a question that a lot of people have had when they've come into my streams the last couple days. How much cap space do we have left? So let's break it down. Let's take a look and understand exactly what the Seahawks are sitting on in terms of ability to spend. So first, let's look at the Draymond Jones contract because we now have full details on it. We got it actually yesterday, but I didn't have a chance to really talk about it very much. It's a very good contract. 3 years, 51.5 million approximately. First year cap hit is 10 mil plus. So just over 10 mil in cap hit. It's a very reasonable cap hit for a player of this level. It's something that we can easily handle. And there's really not too much to say about it other than we did very well in structuring this contract. And we did it without having any void years at the end, which, I mean, if we had used some void years, we maybe could have gotten that cap hit down a little bit lower, but we're trying to avoid doing that right now. And we have managed to find a way to make the contract work without utilizing the void years. So that's good. So 10 million for Draymond Jones, totally workable for that first year. Second year, cap hit balloons up to 18.2 approximately, a little less than 18.2. The cap is going to go up significantly next year, I believe. So it won't be as bad as it looks, but 18.2 is still a significant bump from where he was the previous year. There is an out at this point of 13.3 million dead, but that's still not really what you want to do. 13.3 million dead would be significant. The only way I see that coming into play would be if he just doesn't play well for us in 2023. If he bombs and looks bad and doesn't contribute, maybe. But in the even modest scenario where he plays like he did in Denver, then I imagine he's going to be playing 2024. If he plays well, by the way, you might see a restructuring where we push some of the cap hit into 2025. But as of right now, I'll say this. In 2025, the out becomes painless. If you take a look, you can see the dead cap hit for releasing Draymond Jones in 2025 is less than 7 million. By the time we get to 2025, 7 million is going to be very insignificant. So painless out to get out of a cap hit that is going to be 23.2 million approximately. So decent chance that that ends up happening. It kind of depends on what we decide to do in 2024. Do we restructure him to create more cap space, or do we let it ride and figure it keeps our options open for 2025? Because, of course, if you restructure Draymond Jones, you're pushing some of that dead cap hit out to 2025. That's how it works. But it's a good contract, no problems with it. Probably a 2-year commitment. That third year, it all comes down to whether or not you restructured. And it also, of course, depends on how he's playing. If he's not playing particularly well, then I would definitely expect us to exercise the release in 2025. But if he's playing well, you might see an extension where we push the cap hit out by making the contract a little bit longer. So it just depends on how he produces over the next few years here. Well, 2 years, I should say. So that's the Draymond Jones salary cap situation. Now let's answer the big question that a lot of people have. How much cap space do the Seahawks have? To answer this, we're going to go over to overthecap.com. The reason why I'm going to Over the Cap is because I believe that Spotrac is a little bit off here. I believe that Over the Cap has the correct number as of right now, and their number is just shy of 19 million. So if you take a look at Spotrac's list of players under contract, etc., you can see that they don't have Shelby Harris here. They also don't have Quentin Jefferson. If you go to Spotrac, look at the Seahawks page. As of right now, Quentin Jefferson is still there. So I think that Spotrac is just a little bit behind on removing Quentin Jefferson's cap hit from the list, which is weird because they actually have his dead cap hit correctly listed. So I don't really know how that happened. Also, if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that Ryan Neal's one-year tender is represented here. You'll also see, if you keep scrolling down, that you have a couple other tenders as well for guys that we tendered as ERFAs. John Radigan, Michael Jackson, and Miles Adams. So everything is accounted for on this list that we've done, which is not the case on Spotrac, which is why I believe this number is correct and Spotrac is a little bit off. Now, there is a little bit of a top 51 cutoff here. We have one player. We currently have 52 players on the roster. So the top 51 cutoff is actually right here. We've got one player, Josh Onujiogu. What that basically kind of tries to do is capture what the actual cap number is. And right now, it's not a particularly big deal because we only have 52 players contracted, but soon it will be. Think about it like this. So we have about 19 million in cap space. And you have to remember that a decent chunk of that cap space will come free as players get released. Like, look at the guys on the bottom of this roster right now. Onujiogu, Greg Island, Gerard Hewitt, Jalen McKenzie, Chris Steele, Connor Weddington, V. Jones, Tyler Mabry, Kay Johnson, Chris Garrett, Aesop Winston, Joey Hunt, Isaiah Dunn, Darwin Thompson. All of those guys are probably not going to be on the roster when the season starts. And their contracts are almost entirely non-guaranteed. Meaning if they get released, they don't get any of that money. It doesn't count against the cap. The only guys who have money that count against the cap are the guys who have bonuses. Like Tyreek Smith has a tiny bonus, so he actually would have a tiny cap hit if released. Guys like Connor Weddington, there's no cap hit if they get released. So through the process of the offseason, as the Seahawks sign players and draft players, these players that I'm talking about at the bottom of the roster, the Isaiah Dunns, the Aesop Winstons, the Connor Weddingtons, are going to get pushed off the roster because there isn't enough room. So their release is going to free up small amounts of money with each one. Greg Island frees up $750,000, Gerard Hewitt frees up $750,000, etc., etc. So understand that while the cap number right now officially is 19 million, more money is going to get freed up as guys get pushed off. Now they're going to get pushed off by guys who are going to be making more money, so the net effect is still the cap goes down, the cap room goes down, but it doesn't go down by as much as you would think because each guy you bring in is pushing somebody else off the roster. So the actual number, because when you think about it, every player here that is getting pushed off the roster is making anywhere from $1 million to $750,000. You're probably looking at, it's more accurate to say it's probably around 30 million. Now, there is the rookie pool, and that is significant because we have a lot of picks, and we have a lot of picks that are fairly high in the draft. Spotrac estimates our cap hit for our draft pool is 16 or almost 17 million. Now, in effect, it's really only going to be 14.8 million approximately because they're estimating that a couple of these guys don't make the roster, and that happened last year, right? Bo Melton was not on the roster to start the season. Neither was Derek Young, and Tyreek Smith. Well, he ended up injured, so that's a little bit different. But the point is, they're not expecting every single player we draft to make our roster in 2023. So you put all that together, we have some money left. In actuality, if you take a look at the effect of the draft picks that we're going to make, you are probably looking at a number closer to like 12 million because we're going to pick up some UDFAs. But again, every rookie that you pick up is going to push someone else off the roster at the bottom. So if I had to estimate what the actual cap space is, if I had to estimate how much money we actually have to spend is right now, keeping in mind that you need about $4 million for a practice squad and you need probably another $4 million for mid-season signings. You need to save a little bit of money in case you need to mess with the roster a few weeks into the season or even really late in the season. I mean, you put it all together, I think you're probably looking at something like $10 to $12 million that we can spend right now. Now, keep in mind, we can still restructure Lockett to free up nearly, I think, around $6 million. We can restructure Disley to free up like $2 million. I don't think we would do that. Honestly, the only guy I think we really restructure potentially is Tyler Lockett. That would free up about $6 million. And we can also trade Noah Fant to save basically his entire salary. So you're looking at about $6 million after the draft pick we acquire for Noah Fant, his salary. We can still release Al Woods, and I still suspect that's likely to be the case if we can find a younger, better nose tackle. Maybe we can release Brian Monet. I don't know. That one's a little bit. We're unsure of that right now because of his injury situation. So, yeah, there are a few things we can do to free up, probably get up to about, I'd say, 20 million in actual ability to in money we can actually spend. So that would be the cap situation as I see it right now. Technically, right now we have 19 million. When you count the rookies we're going to have to bring in, that number goes all the way down to like 2 million. But when you factor in all the guys who are going to get pushed off the roster, you've got some freedom. You've got a decent amount of freedom. So that's the salary cap situation for the Seahawks right now. Now, there's one other bit of news I want to go over before I peace out and start getting ready for this stream, which should be starting around 9 o'clock. Hopefully the Seahawks do a little something today. Adam Schefter had this tweet late last night. The Giants free agent safety Julian Love and Steelers free agent linebacker Devin Bush are visiting the Seahawks today. So we've got 2 ones on the hook, 2 live ones. I've talked about Devin Bush before. To me, he's very interesting. He should be very cheap. He's an extremely talented individual who just couldn't figure it out in Pittsburgh. Maybe if you pick him up, team him up with a veteran like, say, a Bobby Wagner, you get something good out of him. That seems at least possible. So Devin Bush, I've already talked about him. Now, Julian Love, this one's kind of interesting, right? Now, Julian Love's a really good player. He's played well for the Giants for basically the duration of his rookie contract. I think he's had some injury issues, but he's a good player. He is a safety, though. That's a little bit interesting, right? Because as I just went over, we have money to spend. We still can probably bring in a couple of guys, and we can create more cap space, but we don't have an infinite amount of cap space, and we already have all that money invested into safety. So what could be the play here? Because you look at Julian Love on Spotrac, they expect him to get somewhere around $8 million a year. They actually think he's going to get a 5-year deal for about $40 million. You look over at PFF, they have a similar projection, 3 years, $25 million, so less years but slightly more money, 8.33 average per year. That's a pretty big chunk of what we have left to spend in theory. And that's even if we exhaust all of the possibilities to create more cap space, restructuring, cutting players like Al Woods. Like, there isn't exactly a ton of money left to go around. And why would we be doing it on a guy like a Julian Love, who is a safety? There are a couple different ways to look at it. If we lose Ryan Neal because he's been tendered at the lowest possible level, maybe we're going to bring in Julian Love to replace him. Maybe we're still considering moving on from Jamal Adams, although I think that's very unlikely at this point, and I don't think it's realistically on the table. Probably we're looking to bring him in for his value as a slot corner, nickel corner. That would help. I don't know if it justifies this cost. And those 3 things, in theory, kind of make up why I think there might be some interest in Julian Love. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to be able to meet his contract expectations. I think we'll get outbid by a team that needs a safety more. I don't think you can justify spending anywhere close to this kind of money on a part-time slot corner, even if you're signing him thinking, okay, we're going to groom him for a year behind Quandre Diggs, and he's going to play slot corner in the meantime because he is a free safety. So interested to see what we do here. My guess would be that we don't sign him. It's going to be too much money, but maybe a surprise move is coming down the pipe. Maybe there's some big shock here. Maybe we do aggressively start slashing things up on the roster, letting Al Woods go, letting Brian Monet go, maybe even somebody else that I'm not even really thinking about right now. But yeah, that's the news right now. I'll be streaming soon. Hope to see you guys in the stream. Should be kicking off around 9 o'clock. Let me know what you think about all this down below. But I broke down our current salary cap situation the best that I could. Hope it offered some clarity. See you guys in a little bit here. Go Hawks.